This is Mike Peterson of KBACE Technologies. I'm here today in Moore Park, California to meet with Kurt Millis of CST to talk about their Oracle HCM implementation. Let's go on inside.
Custom Sensors and Technology is a child company of multinational conglomerate Schneider Electric, with 18 entities and over 4,500 employees. Kurt Millis is HRIS Manager for CST.
Let's take a step back to the decision process and how you came about selecting Oracle Fusion compensation in a coexistent model.
When we were looking to standardize or create new applications that we didn't have globally, we obviously went to Oracle first. We looked at a number of products, and one of those products we saw early on was the Fusion product. A new product made us a little nervous, but we saw the potential for what it could do for us. We purchased the Fusion compensation module by itself, not the entire suite. So we made a decision there that this one particular module could meet our needs globally. And in fact, of all the different tools that we looked at, it was one of the few that promised what others could not.
Talk a little bit about the implementation and from selecting KBACE through the eventual go-live.
The primary reason we selected KBACE was because you were a preferred partner of Oracle. So Oracle gave us a couple of people we could talk to. We talked to you and I think another competitor. And I think we were most impressed with our interaction with your company. Your company's primary objective was to help get us on our feet, but also we had some concerns about hiring a consulting firm. One of those concerns is that we bring in a consulting firm, they set things up, they leave, we have no idea what they set up. One of the things that struck us when we first looked at KBACE was this idea that you'd help us get set up, but then you'd also be there for us if we needed help, but ultimately the goal was to teach us what we needed to do to be self-sufficient. And so that promise was made pretty early, and to be fair, throughout the relationship, it seems to be true so far.
Talk a little bit about the way you would do this process pre-Fusion compensation and how it's gone post-Fusion compensation.
Imagine a global organization, right? Different time zones, no application to speak of, but a need to handle compensation for every single employee in the organization. Previously, the way we handled that was through many Excel spreadsheets and email. And as you get on in the process and lower level managers complete their worksheet and they pass it on to the higher level manager and they engage in a conversation, you can imagine these sheets and many versions of these sheets go back and forth. Pretty soon you can quickly lose sight of people, mistakes get made, there are delays, there's confusion, right? So that's how it worked in the past, the way that we handled it.
And you would do that for how many employees?
Well, so you're looking at maybe 250 to 300 managers, right, that need to touch those worksheets.
Got it, okay.
So, and they all need to make sure they roll up to the next guy, finally to the CEO at the end, who can kind of validate the whole thing with the executive committee. So that entire process, you have a very small window of time to complete it. Let's say 3 weeks, 4 weeks tops, right? And so when you have delays from these exchanges of worksheets, it gets pretty frantic there at the end. The way that we handled it this year was we activated Fusion after some training of all of our managers, right? And the training was an hour and a half long. We showed them effectively what the tool looked like, how to get to it, how to move around the worksheet. We built the worksheet purposefully in Fusion to look very similar to what existed before. So it was a nice feature of Fusion to be able to maintain kind of the look and feel of our existing worksheet. And then we taught managers how to complete their worksheet, communicate completion of that up to the next level.
From a training perspective, did you use Train the Trainer, where KBACE came in and would prepare your team members on the implementation, and then they went out and trained the managers that were going to use the system?
Our consultant, Anton, he created kind of an initial training guide for an administrator, right, and how to, and then we kind of picked from that and created our own manager training guide. Then of course provided it to Anton. He reviewed it, suggested many changes, which we implemented, and then of course through the process of testing the application, we had a lot of exposure to the application. That became kind of our crash training process, right? And then again, we completed this guide, and then we trained our people internally. But certainly, the process of working with KBACE trained us, and there were specific areas that we asked for training on. All of that we implemented in our guide and then used to train our managers.
Talk a little bit about the ability to personalize the system to meet the look and feel of your organization, and really the look and feel on how your organization is used to working within software.
Sure. So Fusion compensation, you're able to kind of use the same language that we were using before. So we have this concept of our merit process, but our merit process contains many components, right? You have your merit, you have your performance rating, you have your market adjustment. Also in other countries, you have what's known as a statutory increase. So we have to have a mechanism for addressing all of those components. What's great about Fusion compensation is it allowed us to address each of those components, but also kind of display them on the worksheet in a nice, simple way. And then address each individual employee as well on the worksheet. So when you look at the individual employee, you expect to see a number of things about that employee: their name, where they work, who's their manager, how much do they make, and then of course all of the columns that I as a manager need to fill in, right? The beauty of Fusion was we were able to maintain those column names, in many cases the same column position, and kind of display the worksheet in a very logical fashion that managers had kind of been used to saying before.
So Kurt, you picked KBACE as your implementation partner. If you could just talk a little bit about your experience working with consultants in the past and really what you look for in a partner to help you with this implementation.
KBACE came along at a good time for us because we kind of knew from working with consulting firms in the past that one of the things that happens for us is we're a very busy organization. We bring in a consulting firm to help us, meet a need or implement a system, and what happens is those consultants come and do that work, sometimes very well, and then they leave, and we're left not being sure what they did or how to make changes in that new system. Effectively, we can't help ourselves. One of the things that was stated early on in our process with KBACE was that a goal of KBACE was to establish us as a partner and to ensure that we understood how to help ourselves, but be there for us in the future when we needed some help with some heavy lifting or some technical lifting. And I have to say, through this process, that's been very true.
You've gone through the process, you've gone live, you've gone through your compensation cycle. As you look back, what would you change differently? What did you learn from this process that you might use carrying forward to implement products and software and other types of technologies?
It's tough to answer in some ways because I'm not sure I would do anything differently if I had it over to do again. In fact, we have other projects, of course, non-HRIS, more IT-related projects, and I already find myself in some ways trying to apply what worked well with KBACE, which was pretty much everything at this point, into those projects. So when we come up against an issue, we say, well, the way we handled it in our Fusion Comp project with KBACE was this way, right? I think that as an organization, we're skeptical about consulting. We're not sure what we're going to get. And so we set up all of these kind of barriers and walls and checkpoints, right? And our experience with KBACE was those things were very minimal, and those things that we were skeptical about were kind of quickly alleviated in practice. And so it colors, I think, the way that we address projects going forward. I think in the future I would try to find a company that seeks to be more like KBACE.